This morning, what kind of grade would you give Texas lawmakers this year?
Yeah, I'd give them an F so far. I think they had so many opportunities.
We called two county judges who had big asks of Austin.
And my hand went up quicker than an old woman yelling bingo.
County Judge Nancy Tanner from Amarillo on promises kept, and Travis County Judge Andy Brown on opportunities missed. Both officials say the biggest need in their parts of the state, mental health care, something Texas lags in. And a showdown is coming in Congress. Republican Representative Keith Self on spending cuts that conservatives want and how to seal off one of the most dangerous pathways for migrants coming to this country.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, I'm Jason Whiteley. Let's get straight to our guests this weekend. It feels like the Texas legislature might not go home this year, at least some of them. We've had two special sessions, another likely on the way, at least for school vouchers. Then there's the impeachment trial in September. So what kind of grade would you give state lawmakers on what they have accomplished so far? A question we had for a couple of county judges, beginning first with Travis County Judge Andy Brown from Austin. Judge Brown, welcome back to the program. The regular legislative session is over. The first special session is over. Obviously, we expect more. What kind of grade would you give Texas lawmakers, though, right now with what they did get done or did not get done?
Yeah, I'd give them an F so far. I think they had so many opportunities, and I guess still do have some opportunities to use that surplus for a lot of good in the state. They were presented with a bill from the survivors and the families, rather, of the Uvalde school shooting, to raise the age to 21 for people who can buy assault rifles. They failed to do anything on that. They failed really to do anything on, they didn't legalize fentanyl strips, didn't do much to help in basically the two things that are preventable that are killing the most people in Travis County right now. And that is accidental overdose deaths, which are largely caused by fentanyl and other things like that. And then gun deaths, suicides and homicides. The number one reason for homicides and suicides is guns in Travis County. So it would have been nice to see the legislature do a little bit more on that. I am happy that they apparently made a big investment into mental health funding. I'm still waiting to see exactly what that looks like. But overall, I think they really missed a lot of big opportunities.
Judge, let's talk about the mental health diversion system, the center that you want to start. We talked about that earlier in the year, the last time we spoke. You recently launched a pilot program, which will actually take off this fall. It's about a $6 million program, from my understanding. But by diverting people away from the county jail, though, do you have any more hard, firm numbers yet on how much you think this is going to save taxpayers there in Travis County?
Yeah, so we've got today about, I think, 2,200 people in our jail. Over 40% of those people have a mental health condition by the survey that we do. I would say it's probably closer to 60 or 70% of the people in any local jail that have a mental health issue that is untreated. What if we can reduce that jail population by that 40%, or even by a 25%, that's going to help us with the strain that we're having trying to hire corrections officers in the jail, which is one of the hardest jobs for any local government to hire in Texas right now. And so it will save us money not only on kind of that strain and the overtime that the folks working in the jail are having to go through right now, but in terms of actual dollars, I think the diversion center we're estimating will cost between $3 to $4 million a year to operate. But we all know that the jail in county budgets, and especially here in Travis County, is the largest single line item expense of county government. So if we can reduce that by a quarter or a third even, that will save significant money for local taxpayers.
And Judge, it's not just you. You've been traveling with the sheriff, with members of the Austin Police Department, with other mental health experts, and you visited places. I remember you talking about Nashville when we last spoke, how you kind of were interested in modeling what will happen in Travis County after what's happening there in Nashville, Davidson County. When do you expect, though, something permanent will physically be on the ground there in Travis County?
Yeah, so we've got this pilot that is going to start by the end of the summer, and we've directed the county staff right now to come up sort of with the exact details of the programming and the criteria for what this mental health diversion effort would look like. They're supposed to come back to us before the end of the summer with those details, and then the next step would be we could vote to put out an RFP for the design of this center. As you know, that process takes a while because of the RFP rules and stuff like that. One contractor I heard from thought that the actual building could be built within about 18 months. So that doesn't, of course, account for the several month period of the RFPs at each stage. I would imagine at the outside 3 years before that would be up and running as a physical structure. But by the end of the summer, we will have that pilot going in an existing facility that is too small for what we need, but it's at least something, and that should start by the end of the summer.
Judge, we always appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason.
Mental health care is one of the biggest needs that we heard in the Texas Panhandle as well. Texas ranks dead last when it comes to access to mental health resources. State lawmakers did set aside billions of dollars this spring to change that. And no place in the state needs it more than the High Plains right now in the Texas Panhandle. Potter County Judge Nancy Tanner is in Amarillo.
Judge, good morning to you. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick made good on a promise that you and I have discussed to put more money into mental health care facilities all across the state, including the Panhandle there. $4 billion the state set aside for it. $159 million, I believe, is what you got there. How much of an impact do you expect that to have?
You have no idea. I can't even tell you how happy I was to hear that they did this. And when he came to a campaign in early 2022, we were all invited, all the judges and all the area sheriffs, and we go to the breakfast at Embassy Suites with him and Kevin Sparks. And so at the end of his speech, he said, "What can I do for you?" And my hand went up quicker than an old woman yelling bingo. Seriously, said, "We need a hospital." And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "We need a hospital. There are 10 state hospitals all south of Wichita Falls." And he says, "You don't have," I said, "We have a pavilion, short term only, but we need someplace where we can put someone long term." And so he said, let's see what we can do. And he took my number. I took his number. I texted him weekly. I texted Kevin Sparks weekly. I said, "I need that money. I need that money." And he did it. He did it. So we've got $159 million in the bank, and we're going to build a hospital. And I'm thrilled to death.
Judge, people hear this and they think that, wow, that seems like a lot of money for the Panhandle. How big is the mental health care need there in Potter County and Randall County?
It is huge. It is huge because I do the mental health hearings for 25 counties in the entire Panhandle. And so when I do sign an order for someone to go to a state hospital, they have to go all the way to Wichita Falls. And that takes 2 sheriff deputies or 2 constables an entire day to take one down. But it doesn't happen very often because there's never a bed available. So with these beds, we will have that luxury of signing an order and taking them to that hospital that very same day. That thrills me to death.
Judge, the Texas legislature completed its regular session. It just ended its first special session. What kind of grade would you give Texas lawmakers this year?
I would give them a B+. I think they did pretty darn good in some areas. Some areas I'm not sure of. I didn't keep up with it because I don't have too much time. But and I would give them a B+ or a A- and get in that hospital to us that quickly.
Judge, if we look at the calendar, next year marks a decade since you were first elected as the first female county judge there in Potter County. You're now in your 3rd term. What's a priority for the next 4 years?
Oh, well, I have a new courthouse going up. It's finished now, but we're not moved in yet because the district judges are having some issues with some of the interior design of their courtroom. So we're kind of holding off on that. We should have already been in it, but we're not. So what I want to do is to make sure that the mentally ill people get the help that they need. And we're doing that with this hospital and just making sure that everybody has a place to go at night. I mean, you and I, we take for granted what we have in our life. We have a good life, we make a good living, and we take that for granted. And I want people to realize that not all people get to do that. So we need to reach out a helping hand when we can.
Judge, if you look down the road, do you think you'll run for a 4th term?
You know what? I've already decided I'm going to retire in 3.5 years. But I've already had people come up and go, "Please don't, please don't, please stay." So we'll see. Ask me again in about 3 years. I'll let you know.
We'll talk to you definitely before then, Judge. We always appreciate the time.
All right. I appreciate you too. Have a great day.
Coming up, it's called the Darien Gap, one of the most dangerous paths through Panama for migrants coming to this country. Congressman Keith Self on how to seal it off after UN groups warn that a record number of people will likely use it this year. Inside Texas Politics, back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. There is a place in southern Panama called the Darien Gap. It's the most dangerous part of the journey for migrants in Colombia and Venezuela who want to come to this country. It's a jungle, poisonous snakes, flooding rivers. It takes 10 days to get across on foot and no law enforcement for miles. The United Nations is warning right now that a record number of migrants will likely use the Darien Gap on their way to the U.S. this year. The question some in Congress are asking, can it be sealed off? That is one of our first topics with Congressman Keith Self, a Republican who represents Collin and Hunt counties in North Texas. Congressman, good morning to you. Let's start with the border in a place called Darien Gap. It's been around obviously forever, but it's a rough, dangerous jungle area between Colombia and Panama. And the number of migrants moving through there right now, the United Nations says, has already doubled what came through last year and is on pace to go even farther than that. The problem, as you well know, no one and nothing has been able to stop them so far. What more should the U.S. be doing specifically on the ground there to seal off this entrance?
Well, first of all, the Darien Gap is a place that I think we could do exactly that. It's about 160 miles wide. It's jungle, it's mountainous. There are only so many routes through that terrain. And it's very dangerous. I mean, we talk about decomposing bodies in the river. We talk about trash. We talk about plastic. It is a very dangerous place. So I think that we probably could do more. And frankly, I'm told that the Panamanian government would like to close the border with Colombia. So I believe we need to get down and talk to the Panamanian government if we can get the policy of the United States to at least try to close that part of the border.
Well, Panama and Colombia have been unsuccessful doing it, whether there was will there or not. If Panama welcomed it, Congressman, do you think the U.S. should put boots on the ground there?
Well, they could certainly make a difference, but that's a tremendous policy decision that would have to be made at the highest levels of the United States government. Make no mistake about it. That is a major policy change. Would I like to see it? I think we need to at least consider it with the agreement of the Panamanian government.
Hard-right Republicans forced that vote, impeachment vote, on President Joe Biden over his handling of the U.S.-Mexico border. You said in an interview the other day on the Fox Business channel that the American people are not yet ready to impeach Joe Biden. If that's the case, what was the point? What was the point of this impeachment vote?
Well, to highlight, I think the point of the impeachment was to highlight the fact that the southern border is a dereliction of duty. But I will also say that the American people may get there with a different issue. And that's all of the whistleblowers. That's all the documents that the oversight and judiciary committees are getting. Because it's starting to look like if we have hard evidence of the crimes of the Biden family, the American people might come along. So I think that that's far more likely to be instrumental in any future vote.
Congressman, this summer, Congress will finalize appropriations, how it's going to spend money. What do you hope to see during this process?
Cutting spending.
Where specifically?
Of us have already told the leadership that we will not vote for the $1.56 trillion bills if they add up to that. We still want to go back to the FY22 bill level, which is $1.471 trillion. That's not much of a cut, but at least it's a start. And I think we're in real danger of not being able to pass the 12 appropriation bills on time, which means we'll have a CR. Hopefully the CR will go into next year and we'll have the automatic cuts that will come in at a 99% level on January the 1st.
And the CR is a continuing resolution, which essentially just keeps the federal government operating. How likely, though, is going back to the 22 budget, because that didn't seem to get very far earlier in the year?
Well, again, unless the Republican leadership is going to make a permanent coalition with Democrat votes, which I don't think they're going to get. they are going to have to find a way to get to 218 Republican votes. That's the issue. And to get there, I realize there are negotiations, but certainly the 1.586 trillion is not acceptable.
Congressman, we will be watching to see how it turns out. Thank you for the time as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Have a good day.
You know, we have all watched the U.S. Supreme Court make some big rulings before the end of its term last month, ending affirmative action, upholding the Voting Rights Act, part of it at least, and preserving democracy by preventing state legislatures from unchecked control over elections. The conservative majority has surprised many throughout this process, but Steve Vladeck is a constitutional law professor from UT Austin, and he told us that something else really sets this court apart from its predecessors.
If you look at what makes the current court different from its predecessors, it really is not any of these decisions. It's not a conservative majority. We've had that at various points in the past. It really is more holistically the sort of general lack of accountability, the extent to which the court is not beholden to Congress and doesn't think it ought to be beholden to Congress, which really is, it's right. And you know, that, guys, I mean, that's a departure from historical understandings. I mean, for the first 200 years, you know, there was this ongoing back and forth dynamic where Congress would use various tools to exert leverage over the court when the court was, you know, in Congress's view, getting too far out of line from what Congress thought it should be doing. Congress would cancel a term. Congress would take cases off the docket. You know, Congress controlled where the justices sat. Congress made the justices ride around the country for 100 and some odd years, right? I mean, so we've gotten away from that in the last 35 years.
You know, perspective is always important to understand what is going on right now. Vladeck is the guy that helps us make sense of what's happening at the U.S. Supreme Court. He's also a guest in our latest episode of Yolitics, which you can download this weekend wherever you get your podcasts. When we come back here on this program, tension continues to grow between the Republican Party of Texas and some Republican elected officials. What might this result in? The Roundtable is standing by. Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Again with us this week, Ashley Godot, an anchor and the managing editor of political content at KVUE News in Austin. Bud Kennedy is a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Ashley, you're in Austin. We've continued to watch the tension grow between some Republican Party of Texas officials and some elected Republicans across the state. What is this going to result in?
Look, I wish I could give you the answer to what it is going to result in. I don't have that crystal ball, but what I can tell you is it is certainly interesting to watch, Jason, all of this infighting to really see what power lawmakers either A, think they have over the public and where people stand and how they feel about their elected representatives.
And Bud, some of these conservative officials that the party is going after are very conservative officials.
Yeah, it's like a church split where the church gets smaller and smaller and keeps throwing people out who aren't pure enough. The state party and the county party, most Republicans don't even know who their county chair or state chair is, and they don't go to meetings anymore because of all the rancor. But the state and county chairs are elected by a little narrow group of activists, and they're going after their own Republicans.
They are eating their own, Bernadine. It is interesting to watch, as Ashley mentioned. Do you think this will amount to anything, though?
Amount to anything in relations to what?
In relations to the next election and in relations to anything?
No, because at the end of the day, Jason, this is what happens when you have one party rule. They're not fighting the Democrats, they're fighting among themselves, but at the end of the day, it's all about winning elections. And they're going to come together to win an election. However, it's not going to erase these bad feelings that they will have personally. But in terms of the party, they're going to come together because sooner or later, they're going to understand they must pass property tax relief. How they get there is they have to realize it takes more than one chamber to pass a law. It takes three. And that's what's going to happen.
And property taxes, and I know some Republicans obviously want school vouchers as well. Let's shift off here with all the heat we've been experiencing. Ashley, let me ask you about state prisons, the heat. We've been talking about this forever, it seems like. What's it going to take for lawmakers to address this?
You know, I don't know if they have the will to address it in the Senate. We certainly know that the House has the will to address it. An interesting report from a reporter at the Texas Tribune. She's been looking at data and found that 9 prisoners died in the month of June, heat-related causes of death. We're talking cardiac arrest, stroke, things of that nature. The House set aside more than $500 million to put air conditioning in all Texas prisons. The Senate stripped it out. The Senate does not have the appetite to do it. They didn't give any money towards air conditioning specifically.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Senate is moved to do this.
Bud?
Well, you know, the Senate just ignored it when the House sent over this, bill and all the money with it. Jeff Leach was one of the co-authors. The House passed it, I think, nearly unanimously, but the Senate just discarded it. They didn't want to do anything to appear to be soft on prisoners. This is not just a problem for the prisoners themselves. This makes it very difficult to hire prison guards. The sheriff's deputies who take prisoners to and from state prisons will tell you how awful the heat is, how it's just wretched conditions. The state jails are the worst. Some prisoners will plead guilty to a lower crime just to stay in a county jail.
Wow. Bernadine, final word.
Bud said it quite well. To give air conditioning to prisoners, make them appear soft on crime, and they're not interested in making it comfortable for prisoners.
Yeah, good point, guys. Thank you so much. Bernadine, Bud, Ashley, we appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope you can join us then. Take care.